Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The issue of Mnangagwa ED for 2030 is dividing the nation. It is an issue that we should not even be on the national agenda. But when you've got a de facto one-party state, they set the agenda, and we, the ordinary people, have got to decide what are we going to do about it. That is one of the realities of a one-party state. Here is somebody who has sent an audio making an argument on the very issue.
Succession battle ye-ZANU-PF yokuti ndiani achaita candidate ye-ZANU-PF kana Mnangagwa asiya. That has nothing to do with the citizens of Zimbabwe. Ndezve ZANU-PF vanosarudzana kuma-congress, vanosarudzana kuma-ningirikiri, kuma-primaries, ma-candidates anonovamirira. Haisi basa redu iro sevana veZimbabwe kuti vanourayana, kuti vanopasana, kuti vanoita sei, hazvinei nesu izvo. Right. Part 2 yacho yava nyaya yeconstitution yedu zvaita kuti tipindire isu sevana veZimbabwe. Izvo hazvinei kuti uri opposition, uri kuzano, but kana uchingova a responsible citizen, you will not allow or indirectly support the mutilation of the constitution. Because immediately paunoti apa zvokuti tiblock ZANU Mnangagwa kuti asaenda ku3rd term kumbetsera ZANU sezvo zvakaita 2017 inhema. Ndo chitsotsi vanhu ivavo mukambovachenjerei, ndiyo chitsotsi chavanoda kushandisa kuti vaite sei, kuti vaite kuti vanhu vasabloka Mnangagwa aende kunoita 3rd term. Saka vanhu ivavo they are very, very dangerous. Now ipo ndiyo kudai 2017 kwakusina sezvanamboreva pasuri, kwakusina ningirikiri constitutional mutilation kana constitutional threat, but apa manje paita zvinhu zviviri zvatinofanira kusiyanisa. ZANU-PF kana achida kuita 3rd term Mnangagwa unoita 3rd term kuZANU-PF, not kunyika. Asi ukaona womurega nokunyika kwedu kunoku kugovernment achiita 3rd term, ziva kuti uri mutengesi, ndiwe umwe wacho. Zvisinei kuti uri muopposition. I tell you the truth. Zvokuti unondivenga kana kuti hamundivenga, I don't mind about that, but that is the truth. Because kana wotadza kuprotecta mutemo zvachatobetsera pamwe temo rachiro rauri kurega achitora ndo richatotorwawo neopposition.
Well, Ben, what do you think?
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. This whole ED2030 fiasco or saga, for me personally, I think it is not our battle to fight. It benefits us nothing at all. And I would also want to just add a latest news that I found out that Job Sikala and his party members were arrested for actually planning to join in with the war veterans in this whole bandwagon. So it looks as if even now some of the opposition members have decided that it is worth joining the fight. But yet the funny thing is, when Comrade Geza stood up and spoke about this whole 2030 movement, he made it very clear to everybody that they want their own to rule at the end of. That is the whole mission behind all this, that one of the war veterans takes over from Mnangagwa. So, I fail to understand, where does democracy then come into this? Why are we fighting for something that has been predetermined for us already. And yet we have said absolutely nothing. And yet we don't have a choice at the end of the day. This is where it actually confuses me the most.
I think, like the gentleman argued there are two issues here. One is the internal ZANU-PF factional war, and the other one is the attempt to change the constitution. Whether we like to admit it or not, the factional war that is going on now, yes, if it was just, take for instance, in 2023, when Mnangagwa we still had served only one term, and he wasn't going to tamper with the constitution, that would have been an internal matter. But this time he's talking of they want to change the constitution too. So we cannot pretend that we are not involved. The question is, how are we going to fight back? And the opposition in the past, their way of fighting back has been, let's participate. This is where the mistake is. If you participate, in this case, in the referendum, you'll be participating as what? Campaigning for the no vote. That is the only way you're going to participate. And if you participate campaigning for the no vote and you lose, then you have given the referendum legitimacy. This has always been the problem with this whole affair, is understanding that if you do not participate, ZANU-PF will go ahead and change the constitution. If you do participate and you lose, then ZANU-PF will go ahead and change the constitution, and this time they can genuinely say you participated, and therefore then you've given the process legitimacy. I think that is the subtle difference that some people are failing to understand here.
See, the problem with us is we've never been able to identify our battle. What is it that we are fighting? And what are we fighting for? Our main, you know, our main agenda should always and has always been ZANU-PF rigs elections. ZANU-PF has denied us a meaningful vote. That is our battle right now. The faction fighting and all that that is totally, it's not our battle to even think about, right? I think this is where our problem is. If we decide, like you said, if we decide to continue participating in rigged elections, knowing fully well that ZANU-PF will have their way at the end of the day, it is a grave mistake. I can quote Tendai Biti saying that when it comes to the referendum, that is where we are going to catch them. How do you catch them when they are the ones that are running the show? You see, it clearly doesn't make any sense. We are still doing the same thing over and over again. So for me, I would say, without any reforms, there should be no elections. There should be no referendum at the end of the day. We will have to stop that from happening.
Yeah, I think we people tend to argue in circles here. If you do not participate and the opposition, and there I've got on the screen a comment by David Coulter, one of the opposition guys. And in his case, he is basically saying that, well, he doesn't agree with these policies. He is quite happy with this glass block dam project. And the hashtag Vision 2030 is very clear. He is supporting Mnangagwa staying on until 2030. So already we can see the opposition is divided. But the most important thing here is that the opposition, divided as they may be, some of them will support that he should stay in. In fact, some of them have already stated that they support the idea that Mnangagwa should stay in power publicly, while others have said no to that. But what matters at the end of the day is that the opposition in its entirety, as we know it, will either be participating for a yes, calling for a yes vote, or they'll be calling for a no vote. What matters here is that you participated. And ZANU-PF has got all the machinery to rig the elections. And they've got, in the case of a referendum, the advantage that they will not have to worry about SADC and the AU election observers condemning the process at the end of the day, as they did condemn the 2023 elections. So whatever result they come out with, because you participated, will be considered to be legitimate. And that is at the heart of the problem. If you participate, you give the process legitimacy. And that has got to be countered with the argument that if you do not participate and make it very clear that you're not participating because the process is flawed, that you are giving at least the hope. And in this particular case, we have already got evidence that the process will not be free, fair, and credible. If ZANU-PF failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections in 2023, and SADC and the AU themselves witnessed that, what chance do we have that ZANU-PF will hold free, fair, and credible referendum? None. So I think that is where the basis of our argument should be. We should not continue to participate in a flawed process, which we know is flawed, which we know that if we participate, we give the process legitimacy. Because we're just going round and round in circles. But unfortunately, we are a nation who find it very difficult to be consistent. And that is, I think, at the heart of the problem here. As much as people want to make sure that ZANU-PF does not change the constitution, they cannot at the same time have the guarantee that participating will change that. I believe at the end of the day, participating will only give the process legitimacy. And that is the reason why, personally, I say people should not participate. How long are you going to finally learn and to realize that it is sheer futility to pretend that you can change a process that is so flawed, so illegal. The result is already predetermined, as you put it. That is the big issue here. And I think we are going to be a divided nation on that issue. Some will participate, and some will participate for a no vote. Some will participate for a yes vote. But at the end of the day, all those who participate will give the process legitimacy. And those who do not participate because they know the process is illegitimate will have the task before them will be to produce the evidence that they did not participate because the process is illegitimate, and to convince enough people to subscribe to that notion. That would be the real challenge here.
I agree with you there. To say it's a big challenge to actually stop, particularly the opposition who are hell bent on participating. And I know for sure that they know that the process will be rigged, but because there is spoils of war at the end of the day, they will soldier on, and unfortunately, they will drag millions along with them. I cannot say, they do not know, because they have stated before and they have stated over and over again of how ZANU PF has rigged elections and how it is senseless to continue participating, knowing fully well of the outcome. It's now up to us as citizens, and each and every one of us, to actually learn to start to think for ourselves. For 25 years, the opposition has been saying, let us participate in rigged elections, we will win the elections. To some extent, recently they have said that they have now devised, vote, how to stop vote rigging and all that nonsense. And yet here we are, 25 years later, with MDC-CCC. We are nowhere better than when we first began the whole process. They have become, a stumbling block in our, endeavor to find a democracy. So I urge everybody to start thinking for themselves. What is it that we will gain by participating in a rigged process? And we fully know at the end of the day that ZANU PF will win, and ZANU PF will claim it was a democratic process, and thus legitimacy is guaranteed. And God forbid, we will have ED2030. And somebody beyond that, it will be ZANU PF, as long as we continue to do the same thing over and over again. So I urge each and every one of us to think for ourselves. What is it that we want? Do we still want to continue in this hellhole? Or do we want to free ourselves from this bondage? Thank you.
I'll just give Mnangagwa the final say on this one. As much as those who are saying we should not participate in these flawed elections will claim that the process was flawed, even if we had SADC and all the other observers would testify that the referendum process is flawed, Mnangagwa and company will dismiss all such claims with contempt. Here is Mnangagwa dismissing the SADC election observer mission's condemnation of the 2023 elections with utter contempt.
Kana vakatuka ZANU-PF kana ini ndonyanyisa kufara kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vakwashi kurumbidza nekuchikanganisa. Ukavona vachiti ZANU-PF yakaipa farai. You are doing correct things for your country. Homu takaita maelections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelection anafamba zvakanaka ndezvavo.
I think that is the reality we are facing here. As much as we know that ZANU-PF will rig the referendum, how do we know it? We know it that because 2023 elections were rigged. SADC and the AU, as well as many other election observers, condemned the process as flawed and illegal. And yet ZANU-PF turned around and said, Ndezhavo, dismissed it with contempt. And there have not been even one token reform implemented since 2023. And ZANU-PF knows that for the referendum, they do not need any outside observers. And so they will go ahead and rig the referendum. And anyone who says that was not legitimate, they will just dismiss it as Ndezhavo. That is the dilemma we are in. But I think as a people, we should stand firm. If the 2023 elections were flawed and failed to meet SADC's principles and guidelines on governing democratic elections, the referendum will not be any different. And if we participate, we are only giving the process legitimacy. The only logical thing to do here is to make it abundantly clear that we are not participating from the word go and why we are not participating. And let's hope enough Zimbabweans will have the sense to realize the sheer futility of participating in these flawed processes to give ZANU-PF legitimacy and perpetuate our own suffering. Thank you very much, Ben. And those of you who were able to join us tonight, thank you very much. Hope you'll be able to do it again tomorrow, 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. Good night.